Welcome to the latest episode of Etihad Cargo Connections. I'm your host, Rowan Anderson, and today I'm joined by one of the connections of the great sprinter, Nature Strip, Rod Lyons. How are we doing this morning, Rod?
I'm very well, thanks, Rowan. Very well.
Thanks.
Yourself?
I'm great, mate. Thanks so much for joining me. It's a bit hectic here at the moment. We've just welcomed our first child about 2 weeks ago, so we've got Bob in the other room. So it's good, crazy nights, but it's really amazing.
Boy or a girl?
A little girl.
You can't really call her Nature, can you? Certainly can't call her Strip.
That's it. That's it. So we'll get started with the recognition that Nature Strip has received, not only at home, but internationally. In 2020, named Victorian Racehorse of the Year, as well as Australian Horse of the Year, voted Australian Horse of the Year and Sprinter of the Year 2021, 2022. And that was the second and third time that he'd won those awards. Only last week, he was named Best Sprinter in the World for the second year running. What do these awards and recognition mean to you and the ownership group?
Look, it's something that all the ownership group take great pride in. It's a great thrill to be recognised by the whole of Australia and actually by the whole of the world. And it gives you great pride, but it's not only a recognition of the horse. We as owners, we take the glory, but it's great recognition of Chris Waller, his team, James McDonald, Stewie who rides him, Sophie and all the gang at Waller's. I mean, they should take great credit. They've kept this horse sound and in the form of his life for so long.
And just quickly as well, off the back of that, I remember watching a documentary with the great man, Chris Waller himself, talking about Winx and how getting a champion horse like that was like winning the lottery and that he could never imagine winning that lottery again. And now he has a horse like Nature Strip and he has, Nature Strip has just been named the world's best jockey in JMac on board of him for a bulk of his races. That must mean a lot to Chris and yourself as well, to follow those footprints in terms of the great horses, as you said before, Black Caviar, the Winxes that have come before him.
Absolutely. No, it's you realise when you follow racing like I do and most racing fans, that when you see a standout, like any sportsman, you go back and you see that person stand out in his sport, you take really recognition of them and think, wow, what makes them so much better than the others? And the same question we posed with Nature Strip, what makes him so much better? He's just a magnificent specimen, magnificent beast, and it is a wonderful, wonderful thrill to be part of the team that races him.
And he took a couple of goes, but he did win that, the world's richest turf race. I know coming from, being based in Australia, being an Australian, that was a huge thing, in its inception as a race. And it is, such a spectacle. In terms of winning that, how important, what did it mean to the ownership to not only have a slot in that race, but, take it out and be the champion of that?
Well, firstly, the Everest is a fabulous day. It's a fabulous lead up. Racing New South Wales through Peter V'landys do a fabulous job. They really look after you. And the lead up to the race, it's like the lead up to a big game, a grand final, major sporting event. And to be there, to be part of the 12 horses, the best sprinters in the world, really, and to compete at that level and to win it, again, it's just like a dream. Did this really happen?
And as you said, you've been following horse racing for so long, being a part of it for, many years. I can imagine it only be like a roller coaster. And, obviously throughout the horse's career, he's been called, at parts overrated and extremely polarizing. But he continues to shake that off. Like you said, he's a champion. He's gone on to win, not just one Group 1, but 9 Group 1s. What does the horse mean to you guys as the ownership, and what has this roller coaster of a ride been like with the great horse Nature Strip?
Look, I find that almost laughable when people still they have a go at him about his so-called inconsistency, etc. And but he is a very, very consistent horse. He's got something like a 57% win ratio and 70% place ratio. It annoys me when I hear that because, you say, he's had 22 wins. He's won nearly $21 million. And he is a wonderful horse. He races against the best sprinters in the world every time he races. And sure, sometimes he's going to get beaten, like us humans. We're always at our best.
What horse doesn't, So
unless you're black caviar, Lynx, you're going to get beaten, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like you said, 41 starts, 22 wins, a further 9 placings. He's done it in Australia. He's done it abroad. He did it at Royal Ascot and the King's Stand. $20.6 million. You know, if we're talking inconsistent and, you know, overrated, those odds just don't stack up. And it's just, you know, the form line of a true champion.
You're right, Ron. They don't stack up. That's a very good point you make there.
Yeah. And if you had to choose one word to describe the boy himself, what would you use and why?
I'd try and describe him in 2, if you don't mind. It would be a champion and a freak. He is, you know, what made Dob Bradman so good? What makes our great golfers so good? Our Rod Lyons, our great tennis players. They're freaks. They're a freak of nature. And excuse the pun there, but yeah, he is a he's just a magnificent specimen. He's a beautiful, beautiful looking thoroughbred when you look at him. And I think he's just got something I don't know. When you look at the gene pool, what makes him so much better than the others? He's just a nature, really.
Yeah. And going on from that, if you had to choose one race or performance of his that defines him, you know, in terms of being a freak and a champion, which race would it be and why?
Look, I'd have to. All his 9 Group 1s were fantastic, but I'd have to say Royal Ascot. Going to halfway around the world, travelling 40 hours on the plane, having to settle into a new environment, taking on the best horses in the world from England, Ireland, France, America, and donkey licking them. And in such a magnificent place like Royal Ascot, you know, the history, you walk into the place and you can just smell the history. And that win there, amongst all the lords and ladies and royalty, was something that will live with us for the rest of our days, the whole team, I can tell you.
And like you said, you know, just not just the lead up and, you know, the preparation that would have had to come in it from Waller's team and you guys basically just, you know, as you put it, donkey licking him, just thumping him and showing him that, you know, he's far from being overrated and polarizing. He's a true champion. So, you know, as a race fan, it still gives me shivers when I watch it. And just the fact, you know, that he did go over there and, you know, flew the flag for us and thumped them was something that we'll remember, you know, for a very long time.
Here, Ron. Here. So I still get shivers when we watch the replay, and my wife Mary watch it, and it was just enormous, and to be so close to the king now and the royalty, and you know, I better shut up because I'll rave on for half an hour about it. It was absolutely sensational.
Yeah, and you know, he still looks like he's got a fair bit of racing in him. What is next for Nature Strip?
Look, we hope so, Ron. Like, he's getting on. We've got to understand they don't go on forever. They're not machines. He's lightly raced for 8 rising 9-year-old. He's pretty sound. A few little niggling injuries, which they all get. We all get. But our plan is first up in the Lightning, then on to the Challenge Stakes in Sydney, then on to the TJ, and then from there he will decide how he is and what the program will be, because it's quite a gap between April, where the TJ, which he's won 3 times previously, is to the spring. So Chris will decide how he comes through those races, what the plans will be via that. But at the moment, it's Lightning, Challenge Stakes in Sydney, and the TJ in Sydney. And
that'd be awesome if he can break his own record with another TJ, wouldn't it?
It would be enormous, because the great Takwa's won 3 and he's won 3. And to be able to break his record would be something special,
Yeah, and just a final question, Rod. Thanks again for joining us this morning. But should we be paying up our subscriptions for the channel that telecasts Royal Ascot this year?
Look, never say never. Unfortunately, COVID cost us a couple of trips to Ascot. We would have been there before. Again, never say never, but probably highly unlikely, I'd say, Ron.
Okay, beautiful. Thanks so much for joining us today, Rod, on Etihad Coco Connections. It's been really great talking about Nature Strip.
My pleasure.
Thanks so much, mate.